Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another fantastic episode of the OSINT Output with Tim and Chris and another guest. It's been great, dude. Like, we've gotten people on here like 4 or 5 weeks straight now. So,
People just want to talk to us now, and I'm really I'm loving the stories that we're getting out of our guests.
yeah, it's nice because we know each other's stories so much that we could tell them ourselves, and getting brand new people on here to talk to us is just fantastic. So, on here, we have Martin, who is a founder of a tech company. So, Martin, if you want to say hi and introduce yourself, talk about your experience, background, and education, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on this, podcast, Tim and Chris. I know you guys are doing amazing stuff. So my name is Martin. I'm a recent alumni at Georgia Tech. Also served 9 years in the Canadian Armed Forces as a intelligence analyst. And so, while I was overseas, deployed overseas in actually Latvia, I realized there was a big technological gap between what um, analysts are doing currently and how fast our adversaries are, outpacing us in terms of technology, like AI and stuff like that. And so it made me realize that we need to close this gap. And so I went back after my deployment, started this degree at Master Science and Analytics at Georgia Tech. And, throughout my time, I found the intersection between linking intelligence analysis together with AI machine learning. That's how I came out to find to create Panoptica Technologies. And essentially, what we do is we use AI agents to accelerate the tactical level decision making. So, especially the intelligence preparation of battlefield. Yeah.
So, before we get into your secret sauce for your product, let's talk about basic training in Canada because from my experience, when I talk to
Yeah.
my fellow Army brethren, they're like, hey, basic training in Canada is probably no joke because you guys have to survive through a harsh winter. Like, you probably have some old school weapons you have to deal with. So, tell us about the basic training experience in Canada.
Yeah. So, okay, it might be not as tough as you think, but so in Canada, basic training has like actually three versions. One is obviously your active duty. We call it like the reg force, and that's like I believe everyone goes to a city called Saint Jean. It's like 11 weeks of like your classic base training, inspections, rifles, stuff like that. For the reserves, is it's different. It's actually 6 weeks. They send you to, they don't send you to Saint Jean, but they send you to another armory throughout across Canada. And there's also actually a weekend basic training kind of class. No, it composes of like 12 weekends, like a week, like kind of basic training for weekends where it kind of accommodates people in the civilian workforce that Monday to Friday they do their job, and Friday night they head to one of their local armories and they do their basic training and stuff like that. I actually wanted to go on like the full time one to get the experience, but unfortunately the schedule didn't line up, so I guess I I kind of had to default to the weekend version. But the weekend version is like it's I mean, it's really condensed. I guess that's the hard part about it is like you have to switch on, going to the weekends, and then once they dismiss you from the armory at in Sunday night, you have to go back to your civilian job. Like I had to go back to my go back to school like early like Monday morning because the commute was like an hour and something minutes. And we got dismissed at like 1800 at the army. So I live far from the university, so it was quite of a kind of like a mental strain on me. But like I look back, I'm just like, how did I even like do all this? But yeah, like in basic training, like you handle like get gas chamber. We use rifles called like the C7 rifle, so it's like your M4 variants. Fun fact, it's ambidextrous, so left-handed shooters, right-handed shooters, you can like adjust your shooting positions according based on like if you're left or right-handed. What else? Your typical briefs like, in mental health brief, not like what's it called code of service discipline. I believe your equivalent is the Uniform Code of Military Justice. If I'm correct. Yeah, yeah. So we learn all about that, how to fight fires, etc. But it's a good experience overall. But I kind of wished I went to to the full time one. But yeah,
Yeah, we don't get a choice down here. It's like one basic training for the entire army, but we have seven
yeah,
different sites that we get to go to.
I think
yeah.
everyone that's had a really bad cold and has been through the gas chamber kind of wishes they could get a little bit of that gas chamber back just to flush everything out.
You know what, man? Like throughout like my training pipeline, I was so scared I was gonna get sick and just get like recourse or like sent back. And I'm so glad that like I was like, I was perfect health, perfect condition. And because, injuries and like illness are like, the ones like that will like get you kicked off, I guess. Other than like not like everyone comes in has like a decent amount of like intelligence. I hope, but yeah, yeah.
And then, do you have to fight a goose to graduate?
No, I don't. That's an unfortunate part.
He's got to learn how to
Yeah.
tap a tree for the maple.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
So one more question I had about the Canadian military. So you've already talked about IPB, intelligence preparation, the battlefield. That's what the Army calls
Yes.
it. What
Yes.
other type of training did you get while you went through analyst school? Was it just like, hey, hands-on keyboard stuff, just computers, or did you get like a training on maps or symbology, anything like that?
Yeah, so when I went into the schoolhouse, so our school is located in Kingston, Ontario. So it's like a it's like it borders like upstate New York. But like there's also satellite schools in a really middle of nowhere place called Aldershot. Like that's where I went. And then like you learn, the basics of like collating, organizing information. You learn plotting. You learn how to identify tanks. Your hull armament turret suspension. You learn how to identify like planes and naval ships as well. You also learn how to handle sensitive information. You also learn how to back brief someone if you're changing shifts on a shift on a 24-hour shift. Like how do you back brief someone that's coming on and replacing you? And also, yeah, you learn IPB steps one to four. The way we do it is weird because we had to break down the courses. It's not like one full like lecture on IPB, but like the school realized that a lot of the school realized, and this is interesting because in the intelligence trade, like the MOS, it's usually historically for people that were prior service that want to switch to intelligence. But then the school realized that a lot of like off the street people were coming in, so they had to split the IPB process into like different like courses. So maybe 3 months, that's your basic train, that's your basic intelligence, and then maybe like after you do your on the job training, if you come back to do your journeyman's course, we call it like the two point development phase 2.1. That's 2 months, and you have to do like go back to your home unit, and then they have to nominate you for your 2.2, which is your actual analyst course. So like we don't, it kind of sucks because like you don't get the full thing. It's like you go back to your unit and you're like, oh, I'm only trained on steps 2 on IPB, and it's just like that's pretty useless because all like IPB like the bread and butter of IPB is step 4, like you're generating your colas and stuff like that. And so like people are like the commanders right now, they're realizing that this like courses, like splitting up the courses into different focuses of IPB doesn't work because people like leave or quit or whatever. So now they're going back to like condensing all the course to like one whole kind of process, like IPB steps 1 to 4. Fun fact, on step 2 we have a different acronym. I know you guys use OCOCA. We use flowcard. So features, lanes, objectives, canalizing ground, avenues approach, rate avenues approach, and key terrain / vital ground. So fun fact.
For step 2, when we describe the battlefield effects, we have 4 different acronym types that we use because we have MECE. We also have ASCOPE that goes with MECE. We have
Oh yes.
OCOCA, and we also have SWET MS as well because we have to describe the way the civilian infrastructure impacts the OE too. So it's like when I learned all those acronyms and now I'm training them, I'm just like,
Yeah.
we might want to start thinking about all the acronyms we have, especially for cybersecurity. There's
Yeah.
way too many.
Exactly.
Now, one last question I have before Chris gets into his awesome one, because he put a comment in here. We have this little Word doc that we work with. You mentioned that you served in Latvia and you realized there was a need for your technology. What kind of made you come to that realization while you were deployed overseas?
Yeah. So, like in 2022, you know, when Russia invaded Ukraine, they were using like technology like drones, and then like Russia's is very popular for using dissemination, misinformation, leveraging mill bloggers to kind of uh, leveraging mill bloggers for them to um, I guess spread their influence in not just the physical battle space but the cyber battle space. In Latvia, we have kind of validation exercises where we us as a battle group, like Canadians, Italians, Albanians, etc. We all come together and do like a big exercise. One exercise in particular is like Crystal Arrow. That's the whole final like checking a box to say, oh yeah, this battle group is ready to deploy in the event of the Russians crossing the border, the EU border, etc. And when we were on that exercise, we the Op 4 has to mimic Russian TTPs, etc. And so when I was deployed in like a command post at a battalion level, I realized that a lot of indications and warnings, and I noticed among my colleagues too, they couldn't keep up with the vast like velocity of information just coming in and having to analyze it and brief the commander in a short like time window. And so I remember one situation where okay, I was like monitoring. I had a headset on. I had the ISR radio chatter and I had the command like the CP radio stream where we had to kind of listen to sit reps and contact reports. And suddenly the commander comes in and is like, okay, I want like a bub, a battle update brief. And like all the staff members come in, I was sitting at the very edge, so like I couldn't hear the radio. And in the middle of like the table, the commanders are just like, talking about like what they're seeing, etc., blah blah blah. And so like I was in an environment where there's okay, I had to listen to one radio and I had to listen to another radio, and in the middle of me focusing, the commanders thought it would be a good idea to just like chatter, shoot the shit, etc. And I'm like, man, like I can't like listen to like everything at once because like I can't keep up. Like maybe I'll be missing like a significant activity from one of the maneuver units, and like that right there made me realize, hey, like if this is just an exercise, and imagine if you're like on a live operation, like if you like in this field of intelligence, missing critical indications and warnings is not only it'll put the lives of men and women at risk, but not only that, it's you're just giving a half-assed picture to the commander, and that doesn't do anyone any good. So that's when I realized, hey, there has to be some sort of like kind of automation or some sort of solution to make this more streamlined. And so that's kind of when that's kind of like how I started, with Panoptica. Yeah.
I think any analyst that's been deployed or in a tactical environment, the amount of information that you have to absorb and then deliver for decision makers is ridiculous. So hats off to anyone that's been there and has done that. Like, it is impressive.
Like, let me tell you something, if I may interject. I just realized this. So um, the signal operators, they have a logbook, and then and they listen to a radio, and when there's something on the radio, they literally have to manually write out and transcribe, and like that right there, it's like, man, it's 2026. Like, why would you like do a manual collation and like, and write? I understand like you have to keep logbooks and stuff, but there's no system. Ideally, there should be a system where there's an AI model that listens to the radio chatter and then transcribes it and then disseminates that radio chatter to relevant like lateral units that need that um, information for analysis or whatever. And like what the school taught us, it's okay, manual like entering a cell on Excel to like put the information in. And I'm like, well, that's not how you use Excel. Like that's the very, very basics of Excel. What you really need Excel for is for, treat it as a kind of data set. But like I think the military is kind of outdated in that sense, where the technology that the military has cannot keep up or is unaware of what the civilian has today. So it's kind of like, what's it, ironic, military technology, like civilians think military technology is like, oh, like, bombs, guns, drones, planes, but it's like a like Windows XP computer. It's like
I learned about pivot
2008.
tables in Excel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So yeah.
oh gosh, what is that meme that I love? It goes, hey, when a civilian hears it's mil spec, they like lose their minds and think it's the greatest in the world. But anybody in the military knows, you hear mil spec, you're like, yep, that's the worst thing you could buy.
So,
Yeah.
so
Exactly.
Tim here actually introduced pivot tables in one of our previous jobs when we were defense contractors for the government to the program, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, I've never seen one of these!" Like, and it's like it's this was like 10 years ago. Like it wasn't like way back when Excel had first come out. It was just like, look, pivot tables, and they're like, "Oh man." So panopticon is one of my favorite words, which is
Yeah.
it means like how you design a space or a building where it can be watched over by one entity. And so after
Yeah.
learning the name of your company, Panoptica, I assume that played into it. But yeah, tell us about this, man. I'm really excited to learn about it.
Yeah, so the name I actually didn't come up with it. It's from like my co-founder Vishal Papua. He came up with it. It's just I'm just really kind of bad with making creative names. I just want to like get things done. But like Panoptica, I think it does make sense. Like it took me a while to understand where he's coming from. It's like it's like intelligence. Like you want to predict what the enemy is doing, but the enemy, ideally, the enemy doesn't know that the blue force is analyzing them. But like that's where the name came up to be. Like we are like kind of the eyes and ears of uh, the war fighters who want to know information, yet like we don't like yet the people that we're analyzing don't know what are the things that we're doing. So yeah.
So tell us about some of the core technology within your products. How can it enable a let's say an analyst doesn't use it. Let's say it's actually
Yeah.
a commander on the battlefield. They have
Yeah.
15 minutes and they want to determine where they need to put an OP somewhere, right? So they can have
Hmm.
either sniper overlook or they can have overwatch on an element that's happening. How can your technology enable to do that faster than an analyst could?
Yeah, so one thing that we're developing is the ability to kind of distinguish independent lone wolf SIGAC, significant activities, from like correlated significant activities. There's one thing that most analysts are they struggle with, and that's to be able to correlate information together. When you're in a small, like when you have like small indications and warnings, it's easy to do that manually. But when the data like populates too much, when the data gets too much, the analyst cannot just, it'll have a hard time for an analyst simply because there's too much information to handle. Like for example, if I see a tank at grid 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, MGRS grid 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and another tank grid 1, 2, 4, 4, 5, 7, like a few like 100 meters, yeah, 100 meters or 10 meters off, like the analyst needs to be able to see, okay, are these tanks similar or different? So it could be a tank moving from east to west, or just like two tanks in general. And so we have the algorithm. We're developing an algorithm that's able to filter out kind of independent lone wolf kind of observations from correlated observations. How that will help the commander is that, and it's not just like identifying vehicles. If you ever heard of overhead persistence infrared (OPIR) data, that tracks, the amount, that tracks like heat signatures emitted from artillery shells. So if so our algorithm is able to distinguish like the firing patterns of the artillery shells, and the analyst can do is to trace back where the shells are coming from. So like if a 2S19 Mista is like their max firing range is like 3.9 kilometers, and you're able to trace kind of the correlation. You're able to correlate the shot patterns. You put a range ring on the patterns, and then extend it 3.5 kilometers out, and you can see the possible artillery placements of what the enemy will do. What that in return, it'll help commanders find hotspots, potential areas that potential kill zones that the enemy might target. The downstream effect is that it'll help them plan around those positions. So like we don't do more we don't automate the ops side of things or plans side of things like the S3 or the S5 type of stuff, but our AI enables the commanders to coordinate with the S3 or the S5 to find out, okay, this is what the enemy is doing, this is the possible placements, here's what we're going to do as a S3 and S5 to kind of see what's the best command post positions. So we're more focused on the intelligence side of things, not much so the planning side of things. Yeah.
So as far as the data sources that you bring into your technology, is the customer able to put in their own data sources, or is it mostly just built around PAI sources that you can pull from the internet?
Well, ideally, we want to do both. So we understand that the data sources are often proprietary, like ISR, drones, your own reconnaissance elements. Those are your own proprietary sources. But we also want to kind of have our own data sources trained on our own models. So OSINT sources, like social media, that's where we train our models on that. And so it's kind of like a two-way street where, okay, you have your own proprietary sources, but yet you have like you have models that are trained on OSINT sources related to the threat to give the context of why the enemy does the way they do things, because it's not just kinetic, but it's also more of a cyber domain as well, like a deception, false positive stuff like that. So yeah.
And then just one follow-up question, because Chris has at least 6 different questions he thought of before even coming here today. As far as detecting deception in either messaging or from publications or just people talking, how is your platform able to do that? Does it flag it, or it says, hey, ignore this? How does it tip off the analyst that denial of deception is typically or is possibly occurring in messaging?
Yeah, so currently we are actually working on it, so it has not been released. But I'll give you a kind of high level architecture. We will want a cross reference whatever open source intelligence sources that we get, cross reference that against our kind of ground truth data set. What's our ground truth data set? Will be, you know, probably like classified reporting from your own organic assets. So that will be your ground truth data set. So like the architecture we would have is having an AI agent pulling sources from online, but cross-referencing that to your ground truth database. And so what this does, it helps the collection agent rank sources based on 3 tiers. One, a gold standard tier. Okay, is it a 1-in-1 match? Is it a high accuracy? Does what the OSINT source say actually mean means what they say? Tier 1. So high probability of accuracy and high correlation with the ground truth database. 2, I'd call this like our silver data tier. It'll be kind of a source that you may not know if it's true or not, but after looking at the ground truth data set, it provides additional context and validates the source. So a silver tier of data. And a bronze tier of our kind of data hierarchy would be pure deception, pure misinformation. And we want this agent to rank those different types of tiers into gold, silver, and bronze. Now the reason why we still want to keep the misinformation, the pure misinformation data source, is because even though it is pure misinformation, it gives the AI agent context of why this is deception. So AI agents function better if you give a lot of context. So if they realize that this data source is a misinformation data set, the AI agent will be like, oh, okay, I understand that this is ranked bronze. It's misinformation. But if I look at the way they structure it, this is how they structure their false flag or whatever report. And so it gives the AI agent context of highlights the keywords for the AI agent to look for any future data sources coming in. And so that's kind of like a blueprint architecture that like we're kind of working on right now. But long story short, we're still working on how to identify disinformation and misinformation. But that's kind of, I'd say, coming soon.
Yeah, sounds like you're training a deception analyst already. You're like, hey, here's the things to start looking out for, and then once you see it, start making inferences later on so that you can train yourself better in the future.
Yeah, 100%.
I find that when most people talk about AI, they're thinking of chatbots and generative AI. Can you explain the difference between generative AI and agentic AI, which is what we're talking about with Panoptica?
Yeah. So for agentic AI, it kind of gives you're giving tools to the LLM. So if I say let's say Cloud Cowork, for example, I look up, I want the Cloud Cowork robot to say, okay, pull the first 5 news sources from Google or whatever. And so the LLM is equipped with kind of tools. So like it's a script, a tool to call the news source, and maybe a tool to scrape the news source. So agentic AI is more of an agent calling a set of tools. for generative AI, it is more so of kind of the AI. If I would put it in my words, it's the AI making creative, generating creative images or generating videos without, well, with a little bit of prior information, but it's more of a kind of generating something that doesn't exist. And if I were to give you the actual definition of generative AI right now, I probably don't have a good. I probably will butcher it simply
Believe that
because
it's
I'm not.
changed so much due to how
Yeah,
many tech companies are involved. So
yeah,
I don't think there's a baseline right now,
yeah.
because if you ask, Sam Altman as compared to OpenAI board as compared to Anthropic, they're going to give you 5 different definitions right off the bat.
Yeah, I know that. I know people who are listening to this podcast might think that I might be butchering like definitions, but there's so much
Putting you on the
stuff. There's
spot,
like,
so don't worry about it.
yeah. There's so much definitions of what generative AI is. Like, it's one of those like buzzwords that you just imply it to be like, oh, it's generating stuff. And so like I feel like with buzzwords we just lose the actual definition of what's the word actually is and just go along with it. And I'm just gonna and I'm no, I admit I'm kind of like going along with what generative AI is nowadays. But yeah,
As far as the agent when it's deployed, how are
yeah.
you making sure that it's doing what it's supposed to as compared to possibly hallucinating, generating data, and providing false information based upon its whatever information it's taking in? What quality controls are you implementing for that?
Yeah, so one of the tests that we're doing is, okay, since our AI agents are kind of a RAG architecture, and what RAG architecture usually is in a nutshell is that it matches your prompt with a database based on a similarity score. And so one evaluation metrics that we're focusing on is the prompt that we're putting in having a high probability matching score against what is being pulled from the database. And that's one of kind of the evaluation metrics that we're doing as well. Another thing is, and this is kind of more time, like labor intensive, but is the simple as, but so simple, is the subject matter expert, like getting a human analyst that's a SME in this area and testing it out themselves and seeing if if it's no, if it matches what the person is thinking, or completely generating a entire different response. To be honest, we're still in the early development stages that we haven't, and it's hard for us to get data to evaluate on because the ISR data is obviously proprietary. So for us to evaluate models on, we need to partner up with some a lab. In fact, the GIFIX experiment, for those that don't know, the Joint Interagency Field Experiment kind of window, the testing, it's an event where vendors come and test. That window is opening up in the next testing event is in August. So like we're actually gonna go there, hoping to go there and see if our AI models are living up to what we claim to be. So that's kind of where we're going to that path. So simply put, evaluation is hard just because we don't have access to the ground truth data, and the only way we can access to that ground truth data is to partner up and outreach and see if any agency, any government agency is able to take a chance on us and see if they're able to release any data sets for us to test on. So yeah.
And usually difficult when it comes to defense sectors, but
Yeah.
I've wished you the best of luck. I think you got at least so far from talking to you in the past and how you've been successful in the United States so far, you got a great shot. But we're going to take a step back a little bit and just talk about OSINT as a field in general. What are
Yeah.
some of the modern challenges that you probably see that OSINT practitioners face? So we've already went over one, right? Information
Yeah.
overload. Like you really went through that when you're just talking about your experience in the skiff, right? So what are some other
Yeah.
challenges that OSINT practitioners are currently facing that they need to prepare for?
I think one of the biggest challenges is to being able to back up your claims on your assessments because especially in the military, no general or no stakeholder in the government is going to take advice from a computer, and being able to have uh, interpretability and explainability in OSINT, uh, especially when you're doing the analysis side of things, that's very important. Now, this is a challenge because you have deep fakes, you have bot accounts. You may be reporting on what seems an account is real, but it's actually controlled by some Russian or Chinese server. And so I think one of the main challenges right now is, are you able to back up your claims while and are you able to back up your claims by not using or using verified sources to kind of help and ensure your stakeholders or commanders know what the situation is like, and being able to, I guess, like communicate that as well is very important. So explainability and having a good track record of, okay, this incident happened. Why is that happening? Is it because of this incident or that incident? And like being able to have an audit log of why your assessment is the way it is definitely helpful to the commander. And with disinformation and misinformation, that has gone a little bit difficult to say the least. So
You from LinkedIn, one of your posts, in defense tech, stop selling bullshit.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, I think, I think in defense tech, especially in OSINT, okay, let me tell you something. It's not like Y Combinator. It's not like, Sequoia Ventures or whatever the VCs and SF are now here nowadays. Coming from a business perspective, VCs like in the traditional startups like Y Combinator, they expect you to 10 times the revenue in like what 2 years or something like that, and that doesn't. It's really impossible to do that, and I think that might involve cutting corners and be at the mercy of your investors. Like, let me tell you something. 2 days ago, I looked up. I saw one person on Instagram. They're making like an AI agent to see how many people you've slept with or how many people they've slept with. I'm like, guys, I mean that's cool and funny and all, but we're actually like, let's build something that solves like real problems in America now. And not only that, like a few months ago, I saw YC accepting a startup that's like a brain rot coding developer or like a brain rot coding agent. I'm like, guys, I I don't know if this is like a recession indicator or not, because if we're in a recession, we shouldn't be like, they shouldn't be even funding these companies. And like I I I I get it, like everyone has to make money, everyone has to hustle, but like, guys, I feel like there's more important problems in the US than just like brain rot coding apps or like a fifth drop shipping product or whatnot. So now in defense that you cannot do this because the audience is so small, and like in the intelligence community especially, everyone knows each other and the intelligence community is so small. So it is super important, especially in defense tech, to not sell that bullshit because it can, they sniff you out right away. they sniff you out right away. And this technology in defense, it might be the last technology, your soldiers may see before, they die or whatever. And like, you're playing with lives here. It's not just maximizing shareholder value. I can't believe I'm saying that, but it's about playing with it's about like lives are at stake. And so this is something you can't just take. This is an industry you can take lightly, because everyone knows each other, especially in the intelligence community. And you can't just simply like 10 times, like you can't just simply make a company just to make money. You want to be in it. You want to help strengthen national security. You want to help, give back to the warfighter. And that's why, you have to be very cognizant of the environment and not be in it for the money. And sometimes being in for the money is selling bullshit, and that's not what defense tech is.
To quote one of my favorite comic book characters talking about what you're saying right there, with great power comes great responsibility. If you have the
Exactly.
capability, right, to do something that benefits a large group of people or mankind for a net positive good, that's probably what you should be focusing on rather than a brain rot app.
Yeah, like the reason why I started Panoptica is because Panoptica is the embodiment of the solutions I wish I had when I was deployed overseas. And I know not everyone, like, no, there's no time machine that exists right now, but starting this is the closest as to having a time machine, where it's like, all right, this is a solution I wish I had when I was overseas. And like, for me, it's about like giving back to, the brave men and women who decide to take up arms and serve, our nations, and support our values. And this is, that doesn't come, that is a big responsibility to have. And I wish, like, this is something that, if for me, it's a way to give back to the younger generation of soldiers who need to, face this dynamic, ever changing dynamic threats that they have to face today. So yeah.
I'm going to take you back to your college days just a little bit. You wrote, or you had the opportunity to co-author the paper "Applying Machine Learning to Predict and Analyze Terrorist Attacks." What can you tell us about the key findings of that paper, and then some of the methodologies used in the research and the data aggregation?
Yeah. So that was a paper for college, and that was more of an exploratory way to see if machine learning kind of aligns with the domain of, is it even possible to predict terrorist attacks? And that was kind of like, wasn't that was kind of before like I got serious about Panoptica. But we used the global terrorism database from the University of Maryland. And so one what we applied, the machine learning algorithms that we applied is simple, like clustering algorithms, k nearest networks, k sorry, not KNN. K means clustering. So what that basically is okay. You take a large database of attacks, and in a nutshell, the machine learning algorithm groups that into different types of attacks. So K means clustering is grouping a list of incidents and seeing which groups belong to what. So we ran an algorithm in, and we saw, I believe, and it's been a while, and we saw like a cluster on the top, maybe top right, and cluster top left, and then a cluster in the middle. Each cluster represents different types of terrorist attack types. So one could be like small arms, small arms fire. The other one could be like
Explosive
propaganda.
devices.
IEDs are like IEDs, bombings, etc. One might be like another cluster, like another group would be like attack against like high profile targets that cause severe casualties. So the only 2 points were at that cluster, and that was obviously like September 11th, where it was like mass damage, mass casualty. That was expected. So it was more of like it's more of a really basic machine learning application using k-means clustering on getting the data and grouping it into automatically grouping it into types of attacks, types of TTPs, should I say, types of TTPs, and seeing which group belongs to what. My colleague also did the neural network kind of like algorithms to see given these variables, okay, weapons used, location, etc., like predict the amount of like kind of casualties, or predict if there will be a mass casualty event, or like how much. My colleague did that. I haven't really don't really know much about. I just focused on the clustering kind of algorithm. So yeah.
Mm. I will say, so I read that paper this morning, and you did a remarkable job at capturing the findings from the paper, like using your memory. So great job on that.
Yeah,
Uh,
thanks.
part of part of the reason I asked that question is just because I really like k-means clustering as a process. I love how it identifies the similarities and just clusters them all together. And I really think it paints the network in a picture that you wouldn't see it from manual building or other options that don't just filter it the right way. And then
Yeah.
the other reason I asked that question is just to highlight the great stuff that the Global Terrorism Database is doing from the University of Maryland. That is a fantastic resource.
Yeah, 100%. Um, and k-means clustering can be overlaid. Like once you get at the within sums of squares, like as low as possible, it can be used for um, follow-on tasks, like downstream tasks. Like, okay, now that you have the clustering, now you have the labels assigned. Now you can run a classification algorithm, like maybe a support vector machine, or something like that, to see, okay, here's a new data point coming in. Okay, classify what the terrorist attack is, and that kind of helps with TTP tracking, or like yeah, stuff like that.
This
So
is the nerdy talk I do this show for.
yeah,
I enjoy it too. Now, one of the things that I like to do, and Chris did bring up this question, but I was going to ask this regardless whenever we bring up AI, is that one of your quotes from the paper is that the use of AI must be approached with caution due to the potential for bias against certain ethnic groups. So when we think about k-means clustering and assigning a vector or a number or an identifier towards a group, how do we try to detect and eliminate bias when an AI tries to assign it that value? I know that's a difficult
that's that
question because like
that
it's
that is
you
that's a
don't
good
know
question.
when you don't know how a neural net thinks, right? You don't know why a black
Yeah.
box model decides to assign and somebody named Tim, for instance. Why does everybody named Tim now a terrorist? So how is a way that we're able to eliminate that sort of bias that exists within an AI model and detect it?
I think one thing is to, and this is more technical, is
We love technical.
to not have class imbalance. Um, Pulling, like, if you don't want a data set that's like 80% terrorist attacks and like 20% like non-terrorist attacks, you want like a 50-50 balance. Um, Another way, like, if we another way to given your example, to see if this see if like the name Muhammad is like a name associated with terrorism or not. You can also overlay that with maybe like other features, like geographical, like geography, or like kind of quality features. Like the way I see it is like it's more so like facial recognition, because um you know being not have the AI discriminate based on facial recognition, that's the way I see it. Like more so on the computer vision side of things. Um, and so I think I think right on top of my head is to have kind of have balanced data set. Um, but no, he asked really difficult questions, honestly. Yeah,
There's just
yeah,
looking back on some of my examples that I have. One of the ones that I always bring up in my courses is there was, I can't remember if it's published in Johns Hopkins or one of the other medical journals that I read,
yeah,
but there was a machine learning algorithm that was trying to detect cancer in patients, specifically chest cancer.
yeah.
So they were presented with images. One was an X-ray, and one was a CT scan. Of course, with a
Hmm.
CT scan, you're going to get much more resolution because it's contrast. And anyways, they had a human help out, and the human said, "I can see cancer in most of the CT scans," whereas in the X-ray they couldn't. So the machine decided that every X-ray, the
Hmm.
image type was not cancer, and every CT scan it saw, the image type was cancer. So rather than classifying objects that it saw within it and recognizing those, it just saw when the image was a CT scan, that's got to be cancer every single time. So the human introduced bias into the machine rather than the machine detecting it itself. So it's weird knowing what outside influences goes into making an AI either biased or, just not being able to do its job at the end of the day. So we never know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's why it's very important to have like a human in a loop to check in things. Like I'm guilty of typing in stuff in ChatGPT and just like skimming through it and just click approve. I
Happening in
but
college right now because now they're putting in like these things where it says, and in the prompt it says, make all
oh yeah,
output to font and white text, and then the student just submitting that to the instructor.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. I think a good way to reduce bias, especially if you go into like deploying AI in like an all source intelligence team, is having a voting system and see like that forces like let's say best 4 out of 5 analysts will approve the AI output, and that will be set to the commander. Maybe something like that. Having a voting system for that would be one of the ways that we can counteract AI bias, and like having like forcing humans to actually read the outputs before sending it off to like a higher command. So yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the projects that I was on. Was looking at we were looking at 4 different AI models and
Yeah.
testing and we gave it the same prompt for all models, and then the
Yeah.
analysts were involved in a voting process where it's like, hey, this one looks great. These two we would vote like 2 and 3, and this one is just did terrible. So I think that's a great component to add to any AI model that's going to effectively allow a commander to make a decision that impacts another person's life. Because like when you were talking about how
Hmm.
there are war fighters that need our support, and at the end of the day they're making a decision that's going to impact another person's life permanently, I
Hmm.
just applaud you for saying it that way, because
Yeah.
they don't
Yeah.
realize the types of decisions you made while you were in Latvia that caused the commander to say, hey, drop a bomb right now. So
Yeah, exactly. I think the way that we're building, like the way we're approaching AI, is have the AI as a bridge between machine learning models. So it's kind of like understanding the context of what the human wants and choosing the appropriate machine learning model. Because it's easy for the machine, if you have a good data set on an ML model, I think it's easy to evaluate that, because there's you're doing splitting into training and testing data, and it's easy to evaluate based on that. But for LLMs, it's hard to evaluate because you don't know what they're like. If I don't know anything about intelligence, you don't know if the AI that's putting out things that's putting out, you don't know if it's true or false, simply because you don't have the domain knowledge. So I think where we're meeting it in the middle is having the AI kind of understanding what the analyst is like natural language processing, and referring it to ground truth tested like empirical machine learning models to do the task that's what the user wanted. Yeah.
All right. So you went to Georgia Tech. Tim,
Yeah.
do you know who the mascot at Georgia Tech is?
I seem to remember something flying like an insect.
Yeah, so it's Buzz the energetic yellow jacket. But
Yeah.
really,
Go Jackets.
yeah, really it's the Rambling Wreck, right? It's the 1930s Ford Model A that they have on campus that's maintained by the college campus. But so here's what I want to ask. So in 1963, the Tennessee Volunteers stole the Rambling Wreck and they repainted it. So since Tim is a volunteer, like what do you have to say to him?
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. Okay, I haven't been on a campus because I did my degree online. So, so, but I don't. Yeah, yeah,
That's okay. I got a follow up because you also went to the University of British Columbia, which is
exactly.
the very poorly named Thunder the Thunderbird. That's their
Yeah,
mascot. But
yeah.
so some of the research I did on UBC, it was like there's a giant whale on campus. There's a Christmas tree farm. Like this sounds like a magical place. You got a pneumatic tube to send radioactive materials under campus. Like what's going on over there, man?
So for UBC, it's a campus that's isolated from downtown. It's very like what's it called? Like getting dorms and stuff. Like it's so expensive. It's like what it's like right now I think it's like 3K for like one bed, one bath Canadian. So it's like 2.8K US for a month. But like one of the traditions at UBC is that there's something called the engineering like crane. It's like a statue, and like whenever some kind of event comes up at UBC, like they deface the engineering kind of like creating the statue to like paint whatever things they want to paint. And we also have like a Japanese botanical garden on a far west of the campus, and there's also like kind of a labyrinth, like a maze of like a garden where like people can just walk. Um, there's also it's also home to Triumph, which is a research laboratory for quantum computing, I believe, or some oh no, it's a particle accelerator at UBC. And so yeah, there is the dinosaur kind of like skeleton thing museum. I think that's I think that's like I'm not sure the building of the name, but yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff going on at UBC. It's a big campus. You have to kind of bike between classes. Oh, cool! Fun fact about UBC. So at Main Mall, there's like a fountain, and usually when classes end, they usually end at like 10 minutes before the hour. And so like if I have a class at like 1 p.m., class usually ends at like 1:50. So like if 10 minutes, you go to another class. And so at the 10-minute mark, the water fountain starts like kind of shooting up, the water jets. And like as the 10 minutes go, the water kind of like decreases as the time passes. So like you have to get to class before the water fountain stops pouring water. So that's kind of crazy. That's like a good time check for
So
you.
it makes you want to pee in between classes. So then you're late.
Yeah.
So the rabbit line up there is really fascinating. It's this pneumatic tube that they send medical isotopes from somewhere where they make them to the medical facility at the campus. Like it's really cool. And then my final question for UBC is, do you have to fight a goose to graduate?
No. Oh, no, so when you go into so Canadian university admissions, if you don't know, we don't have to do the SAT. Yeah. So we used to have something called like the provincial exams. It's like where you get tested on like math provincial, English provincial exam, etc. A social studies provincial exam. But I heard like they got rid of it, so I don't know anything about that selection process anymore. But no, we don't have to fight a goose. There are like geese around the campus, so like you don't want to like piss them off too much. I guess so.
We have them down here.
I almost got in a fight with
Yeah.
my buddy over the SAT. Like, we had left the SAT and we went to a Pizza Hut. And he's
Yeah.
like, all right, man, what does superfluous mean? I was like, it's meaningless. He's like, no, it's got to have something. Like, I know I got it wrong, but what does it mean? And he was like,
Yeah.
he started yelling at me.
Yeah.
Extra not needed. Martin, thank you so much for being on, but we do at least
Yeah,
want to
of
give you
course.
time to discuss anything you want to discuss right now. If you want to, you can tell us about conferences, events you're going to be at in the future, or just what you're working on right now. Whatever you want to talk about, this time is yours.
So right now we're getting our white paper being evaluated by the U.S. Army Futures Concept Division, the intelligence section. So once we get accepted, we'll be, working on the algorithms hand in hand with the U.S. military, where we develop our capabilities to create to hash out our development a bit more. And so, I'm not gonna say no to money. Like, we're always open to angel investors, especially in the defense tech space, and obviously open to having users trialing out our products, being able to kind of test and like hard assess our capabilities a bit more before we ship it out to the actual market. And so, yeah, like, if anyone's interested, just contact me. I'm active on LinkedIn. Y'all have my phone and email, Martin at Panoptica.tech. So yeah, that's pretty much it, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. If there's anyone out there listening and you're a member of the defense community, let Martin know, and he'll give you a taste of what his technology is hopefully going to do.
So they did that early on. You guys had open access like very early, and I think I actually played with this tool when it first came out.
Oh yeah. It's when when Mexico went crazy over Elemental's death, and we realized that this might be a good time to see if we live up to what we claim to be. I'm gonna be honest, we have work to do. We have work to do, but I'm so glad we have that feedback, because we would be shooting in the dark. And obviously we don't want to sell BS, so that's why I'm kind of we're going back to the drawing board, and we're coming out stronger. Hopefully after Q4, Q3, Q4. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Martin. And so at the end of the podcast, just want to remind everyone, if you enjoyed this content, please comment down below, like, subscribe, share it with your friends. And also, if anybody would like to come on this podcast, please hit us up. It's Tim or Chris, those names, at the OSINTOutput.com. But this has been Tim and Chris with the OSINT Output.
Tim and Chris and Martin
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Martin.
tried to get me on that.
Thank you.